Turn to Matthew 8, Mark 1, Luke 4. We'll continue a series on the miracles of Christ. Matthew 8, verses 14 and 15. And when Jesus was come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her. And she arose and ministered unto them. Mark chapter 1, verses 29 through 31. And forthwith, when they were come out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Simon and Andrew, with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever, and anon they tell him of her. And he came and took her by the hand, and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she ministered unto them. And over in Luke chapter 4, verses 38 and 39. And he arose out of the synagogue and went into Simon's house. And Simon's wife's mother was taken with a great fever, and they besought him for her. And he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And immediately she arose and ministered unto them. So again, Jesus is in Capernaum. Simon, Andrew, James, and John have witnessed and experienced the overabundant provision of Jesus Christ, with him, which is what we spoke on last week, bringing in the miraculous catch of fish, bringing them from nothing to 2 boatloads of fish, so much so that their ships were beginning to sink. And in the synagogue, they've had the experience of his teaching, of his authority. They have witnessed his authoritative power over the demonic world. We looked at that as well. All of this has happened on the same day. And on that same day, leaving the synagogue, Jesus, Simon, Andrew, James, and John arrive at the house of Simon and Andrew. It's probably about midday now. Matthew records in Matthew 8, verse 14, and when Jesus was come into Peter's house. Mark records, Mark 1:29, when they were come out of the synagogue, which we just referred to, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew. And Luke says in Luke 4:38, and he arose out of the synagogue and entered into Simon's house. So you have Simon and Andrew's house, and Jesus is there. A picture of the grace and mercy and love of the Lord. And in that very house, there was, Matthew 8, verse 14, Peter's wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. Mark chapter 1, verse 30 says she lay sick of a fever. Luke 4:38 records that she was taken with a great fever. So we know that in that house that day, there was Jesus, there was Simon, there was Andrew, there was James and John, and Peter's mother-in-law. We know that for sure. Those were there. There may have been others, but those were there. So in that house that day, probably a very ordinary house, very common house in Capernaum, there is a need. And there are people unable to meet the need. And there is Jesus. So in that house, there is a need. There is a concern. And there is one who is greater than the need and the concern. In that house, again, there is a need. There is helplessness. And there is God's remedy. In that house, there is a need. There is the inability of man. And there is the ability and sufficiency of Christ to meet the need. So there they are. Jesus, Simon, Andrew, James, and John in that house. And there is Peter's mother-in-law. And she is lying sick with fever. So in that house that day, it is Jesus, His people, and need. And Matthew, Mark, and Luke all give record that Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law that day. So what transpired in that house that day involves Jesus, involves His people, and involves a need. And in that house that day, there was a further revelation of Christ. Christ has been revealed to them that day already. And now there is a further revelation of Christ to Simon, to Andrew, to James, and John. So we want to speak Jesus' authoritative power upon weakness. We see in this miracle a picture of prayer. In verse 30 of Mark's account, and anon, or immediately, without delay, they tell him of her. Luke says they besought him for her. Notice the pronouns they, him, her. And there's a specific order. They, him, her. The they, we know, are Simon, Andrew, James, and John. The him, of course, is Jesus. And He's the remedy. And the her is Peter's mother-in-law. She represents the need that was in that house. So looking at Mark's account, verse 29, they, him, and her. Jesus is in the house. And in verse 30, there is a problem. Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever. There's a problem. There's a need that has been stated. Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever. That is followed by the conjunction and. So you have this statement of fact. Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever. And for something else. And it is the word and is used in relation to these two facts. Fact number one, Jesus is there. Fact number two is Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever. And, anon, immediately, they tell him of her. They were impressed. Keep in mind what they've already seen this day. They were impressed to tell him. Not to instruct him. They were impressed to tell him. They tell him of her. Our lives ought to be marked by such. It is what we ought to do in all circumstances. So let's look at these three pronouns. There's the they. We can identify with the they. It is a people who have been brought into a relationship with Christ. And they have access to God through Him. And they tell Him. This is what they did. They tell Him. And they did so without delay. And they did so out of a sense of need. And they did so from a heart of concern. And they did so with a burdened heart. They tell Him of her. His presence was a reality to them. They're all in that house. They could see Him. They knew Him. They felt an attachment to Him. And now they feel an urge to tell Him. To tell Him. They were moved to tell Him. And they did so with faith, assurance, persuasion, confidence, trust, and conviction concerning His person, His authority, His power, His love, His care, and His willingness. Convicted of all of those things, they tell Him. They tell Him. They knew what He could do. So immediately, without delay, they tell Him of her. The matter was important to them. So important that they told Him. They told Him. They had a felt, real, and present need. So without delay, they tell Him. That was their impulse. That was not their last resort. They tell Him. So often, God's people, the Lord's their last resort. They've tried everything else. Well, we might as well give the Lord a try. They tell Him. And that needs to be our impulse as well. When it comes to changes and dangers, temptations and sorrows and joys, and gains and losses and choices and family and health and careers and finances and other people and relationships and hearts and minds and emotions and situations, tell Him. Just tell Him. Oh, that would be us. And anon, they tell Him immediately. That should be our first impulse. They tell Him of her. Her. Sick of a fever. That was the circumstance. And they told Him about it. Luke writes, Luke 4:38, they besought Him. So that tells us the degree of their telling Him. They besought Him. They pleaded with Him concerning her. Whatever it is, tell Him. Tell Him. May this always be our reaction to the happenings of life. This is the remedy to being mastered and controlled by life. Too many of God's people are mastered and controlled by life. Tell Him. That's the cure. That's how you rise above being mastered and controlled by life. Tell Him. Don't grab your cell phone and tell everybody under the sun. Tell Him. Tell Him. You don't even need your cell phone to do that. You save your battery. Tell Him. The Him. Jesus is there. And He's there for them. And He's there for her. And they tell Him. Jesus is there. And He is Lord. He is able. He is all sufficient. And they tell Him. Jesus is there. He's above all. He's beyond all. He's God's provision. He's God's remedy. He's God's solution. So they tell Him. Jesus is there. In Him is life. In Him is salvation. In Him is refreshment. In Him is hope and strength and comfort and joy and blessing. So they tell Him. Makes sense. And He didn't mind. And He didn't become anxious and worried. You tell other people, they may mind, believe it or not. They may not want to hear your problems. And they may become anxious and worried. And they may become weighted down. Just tell Him. Tell Him. He didn't mind. And I believe He wanted to hear what they said. He wanted to hear it. He already knew it. But He still wanted to hear it. And I believe it pleased Him that they told Him. I don't believe it pleases the Lord to tell everybody but the Lord. Or to tell everybody before you tell the Lord. Tell Him. Tell Him. Then notice the her. They told Him of her. They told Him of somebody who had a great need. Of somebody who could not help themselves. Of somebody who needed a miracle. We all need miracles. And we all know people that need miracles. And they tell him of her. They told him of someone that they loved and had a burden for. We are told in Matthew and Mark's account that she lay sick of a fever. But Luke, being a physician, gives us a little more detail. He says that she was taken with a great fever. She was taken. She was overtaken. She was under the control of a fever. But it was of a great fever. A very serious, very high fever. And it's overtaken her. There was an urgent need. There was an urgent need. And they tell him of her. So the her represents necessities, burdens, troubles, trials, difficulties, concerns, needs. And glory to God, for every her, there's a him. He's the answer. Whatever the her is, he's the answer. Tell him. Without the him, the they and the her have no hope. So you just come to him, trusting him with her. That's what they did. We can view this as a picture of life. Notice that in Mark 1, verse 30, and Luke 4:38, the order between they and her is him. He's between them. He's between they and her. In other words, the center is him. And in life, there are great needs, there are cares, there are burdens, there are difficulties, there are problems, there are sorrows, there are heartaches, there is that which is overwhelming, there's confusion, there's anxiety, there's disappointments, there are battles, there are struggles, there are obstacles in the way. There can be upheaval, there can be uncertainty. But between us and these is him. That's always so. He's the mediator. Again, between they and her is him. And he is between you and whatever is going on. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what's going on. He's in the middle. They, him, her. And there he is, triumphantly over all, above all that is in our lives. No problem that he's not the solution for. No question that he's not the answer to. No need that he's not the provision for. There's nothing broken that he cannot restore. Nothing so upsetting that He cannot calm. No sickness that He cannot heal. Tell Him. They tell Him of her. So, whatever is on the other side of, they tell Him of. They besought Him of, or for. Whatever's on the other side, Jesus is in the midst, and He's the one that matters. Tell Him. So let's look at the healing itself. Jesus is in the midst. And we read what Jesus did. What is recorded of Jesus' activity in the house that day. Everything He did that day in that house, He did in relation to her. The need. It is Jesus acting in her behalf and their behalf. It is Jesus for them. Jesus for her. That's God's grace. That's God's mercy. Jesus acting for them, for her. That's God's unconditional love. His unconditional goodness and kindness. We read, as you read the accounts of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, regarding this particular miracle, it is Jesus for them, more specifically, Jesus for her. So let's look at His activity. He entered the house for them, but again, more particularly, her. That's why He's there. He knew before He ever entered the house of Simon and Andrew, He knew her condition. Before He ever entered that house. And before they ever told Him of her. He already knew. That's why He's there. And He entered the house that day with the very purpose of healing her. He's there, and He is there for her. And He is there to perform a miraculous miracle upon her. Secondly, so He's entered the house. They tell Him of her. And Jesus drew near to her. Mark records, chapter 1, verse 31, and He came. And He came. No doubt, where she lay in the house. He entered the house in a general sense. She's in a portion of the house, lying sick of a fever. And He came. Came to where she was. Jesus, the one in which there is no condition, no situation, no circumstance, no problem, no difficulty, no trial, no disease, no plague, no wound, no affliction or need that He's not the answer for. He came to where she was. He has come to the precise place, to the precise spot of Peter's mother-in-law. Jesus is there for her. And oh, how blessed when Jesus comes to your place. We see it all through the Gospels. The giver of life, the miracle worker, the provider of needs, the bestower of blessings, the one in whom there is mending and healing and restoring and transformation, has come to where she is. It's Him, it's her. He has come to her place of sickness. He is there. And He is there to do for her. Next we see Jesus saw her. Notice in Matthew 8, verse 14. So He entered the house. He goes to the room or the portion of the house where she was lying. In Matthew 8, verse 14, and when Jesus was come into Peter's house, He saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. He saw her. He saw her in her state of fever. That is how He saw her. He saw her in her state of need. He has come to her precise location, and He sets His eye upon her. He sets His eye upon her. As He sets His eye upon her, He does not see one who is deserving or worthy of His bestowal of health, but He sees one that is undeserving and unworthy. But He saw her with eyes of grace, and mercy, and love. He saw her with eyes of compassion, kindness, and long-suffering. Another action that we read in Luke chapter 4, He's come to the precise spot in the house where she is. And in Luke 4, verse 39, and He stood over her. So He's come into the house where she was. He's drawn near to her. He has set His eye upon her, and He is standing over her. She can feel His presence. She can feel His presence. Another thing, He came into contact with her. Matthew 8, verse 15. Luke 1, or Mark 1, verse 31. We read, and He touched her hand. And He came and took her by the hand. So Jesus has come to her place. He's looked upon her in her state of fever. He's standing over her. He reaches His hand toward her. He touched her. He took her by the hand. So He's holding her hand. And there is reassuring power and comfort in His touch. He then did something else. Luke 4, verse 39, I believe with her hand in His, He rebuked the fever. Why did he rebuke the fever? Because the fever was the problem. He rebuked the fever. Once again, Jesus is dealing with the root problem. That's what he does. That's how he does things. And then the seventh activity, he lifted her up. So he's got her hand. Mark 1, verse 31. He lifted her up. I believe as he's lifting her up, he rebuked the fever. As he was lifting her up toward him, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record the fever left her. What was the problem? The problem was the fever. And the fever left her. Jesus drew near to her, came into contact with her, exercises his power upon her. And all of this was effectual. The fever departed. The fever left her. The fever departed from her body. Due to the power of his presence, due to the power of his word, due to the power of his touch. Oh, what a difference Jesus made that day in that house. The fever left her. And she was not left in a weakened and feeble condition. Because Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record that she ministered unto them. She's not weak. The fever has left. She's been brought from shivering and burning with fever to joyful service. And she ministered unto them. She is manifesting that she has been healed. And as she ministered unto them, I believe she did so with a smiling face. She was happy. She was healed. One of the reasons she was healed was to minister. You and I are saved. One of the reasons we're saved is to minister. The Lord has done the miraculous in our lives over and over and over. And one of the reasons is to minister to others. The fever left her. And the entire atmosphere of that house was changed. Oh, what Jesus can do. Oh, what He can do. So tell him. They tell him of her. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us verse of song.